Okay, wonderful. Hello, YouTube. We are back. We are back to read some more weird and... I was going to say weird and wonderful, but I can't really promise the second part. I feel pretty confident about promising the weird part after our experiences with L. Frank Baum. Husky, thank you for the lurk. But as a side hustle, so if I watch your stream on YouTube, it will help you achieve goal. Right? Genuinely, yes. Yes. Context. I am working towards unlocking the YouTube Partner Program. I've been on Twitch for like 3.5 years doing this, but only been on YouTube since the fall, so it's kind of a new thing I'm doing. And if you guys over on Twitch even just like open it as a lurk window, even if your main viewing and chatting is on Twitch, that still helps a lot, because we actually on this channel we hit the first sub goal for the first level of the YouTube Partner Program. We hit 500 followers. So to be able to unlock level 1 of the YouTube Partner Program, we've got that, and now we need to hit 3,000 watch hours. And the easiest way for you guys to help with that, if you're someone who's watching on a PC and you're able to just open that up in a lurk window, is so appreciated. Obviously some of you are watching from your phone. Don't worry about it then. Watch wherever you're most comfortable or wherever you enjoy the most. Yeah, but hello. Twin Testicle Tyler. Oh my god, he's back. That's nuts. Gonna bot 3,000. That's probably a joke. I hope. Just in case anyone doesn't know, though, I'm gonna take this opportunity. Never view bot your favorite streamers. Even it's not actually a nice supportive thing. But how's it going, Tyler? No, hola, goodbye, hello over on YouTube, and Malam and Rayshawn and Ash, thank you for watching over on YouTube. Yes, and I also, it's available to watch in both vertical and horizontal over on YouTube. Life has been nuts. I believe that, Twin Testicle Tyler. Hi, Parisia. Yeah, I am. The fact that we like hit that goal feels really good. The sub goal. I know that's just the first step. We haven't unlocked even level 1, let alone level 2 of the partner program, but it feels motivating, you know, to hit any milestone. So I'm feeling all jazzed up about that. No, I haven't, Muse. What is that? But yeah, we are going to be back reading Tik-Tok of Oz. Hi, Fitch, over on YouTube. Thank you. And let's get the links up. There we go. So that if any of you would like to read along, you are able to do that by clicking on the pinned link in chat. It's a link to Project Gutenberg where you can download or just like open in a browser tab this book that we're reading if you would like to read along. Let me copy paste that into YouTube chat and pin those. There we go. And if you're watching this after the fact, it should be in the description box. So, Manon! Oh my goodness, you absolute gem. Thank you for the tier 2 sub. Oh my goodness. Also, 28 months. Manon, thank you. Oh my goodness. You gem. That's amazing. Hi, Foodie. Hello, how are you doing? Your D&D party TPK'd everyone who was there? So is, like, what next? Right, we are also playing Wizard of Oz Bingo. Let me bring that up so we can see where we're at with that game. We have only been reading for this book for 2 streams so far, but we've already got several things ticked off the bingo board. Should you have read the previous books, or is each one standalone? It gives some context because there's like recurring characters and things, but it's not mandatory, and I give recaps anyway, so oh, Trey, you're very late. This is very late for you. Past your bedtime? Are you heading to bed now? And Indie J, time for bed for you. Thank you for hanging out, Indie J. I hope you sleep well. Okay, let me bring up. Here we go. This is our bingo board. I know, it's very exciting. The ones that we have already ticked off are Sussy Mind Control, They Go to a New Fairyland, Retconning Canon Events, The Love Magnet, Interferes in Some Way, The Gnome King Physically Attacks His Followers, Horrors Beyond Comprehension, and The Threat or Attempt of Execution. Yeah. So, there's a few different angles where we're only 2 away from a bingo. So take a peek at that. We'll see if we can stamp off any more. You've come for the shenanigans. Nico, you're in the right place. You are in the right place. Welcome. All right. You're here for the madness of Oz. You are definitely in the right place. What happens at bingo? We get to play marbles on stream over on Twitch. Precia, just wanted to pop in momentarily to say hi. Wish everyone in Val a peaceful night. Oh, you're in a lot. Oh, Parisia, I hope that improves very soon. I'm so sorry to hear that. Thank you for your very kind words and for popping in to say hi. You're here for the joy of reading. You are also definitely in the right place. Also impressive. Welcome back. It's good to see you again. Okay. I guess we'll be jumping into it. Let's give a little bit of a recap. We have a new character in this book that's never been seen before, Betsy Bobbin. She's maybe a sociopath because she doesn't really seem to be fazed by anything, and like things that like she should show emotion at. Like, she was shipwrecked and in the distance watched the entire ship explode, presumably killing everyone else on the ship, and she had no emotional reaction. She was then adrift on a random piece of wood with a donkey in the middle of the ocean for 3 days and had no discernible emotional reaction. She then washed up on a strange shore, found a greenhouse with a bunch of talking roses with ladies' heads in the middle of the roses, and then the gardener burst in and threatened to execute her, and then an old man fell through the roof and pulled out like a mind-washing, like brainwashing little mind control magnet. And again, she is just taking it like too much in stride, you know? Like, there's a point where it's like you're too chill about this. Girl, it's okay to freak out that all these things have happened, and the fact that you're not puts your character into question. Anyways, Betsy apparently is having a fine time. We've had no mention of her family members at all. Is she an orphan? We don't know. That also hasn't been mentioned. Why was she on a ship? We don't know that either. Where was she going? We're not sure. We know she's from Colorado. Anyway. Then there's the donkey Hank, which is only the second animal companion to come ashore on the strange fairyland of Oz and not gain the ability to talk. The first one being Toto. Does this have to do with their level of intelligence? We don't know. It's never really been addressed. Did I mention that L. Frank Baum isn't the most talented writer / he really just doesn't give a shit sometimes? Crystal, welcome. You're new to the channel and you subbed. Oh, thank you for the sub, Crystal. Welcome, welcome. We read books here. And sometimes it's more serious because it's actual really good literature. And sometimes we get kind of silly and take the piss out of it. I enjoy it either way. Tichibo, hello, hello. And Abmac, hi. All right. So Betsy and Hank are traveling around with the Shaggy Man, who has this mind control magnet, the love magnet. It makes people love him against their will. Yes, that's problematic. Yes, he has used it to abduct several children in the past, including Dorothy. But people keep liking him. And they are traveling to find the lair, the kingdom, the cave of the Gnome King, aka the Metal Monarch. Because he feels certain, and apparently he's correct, that the Gnome King kidnapped his brother, who was a miner in Colorado, and the Gnome King got upset that the Shaggy Man's brother had like delved too greedily and too deep, and he just like snatched him up and kidnapped him and like put him in jail or something. So they're going for that. On the way, they meet once again with Polychrome, the Rainbow's daughter, who we've met in a previous book, as did the Shaggy Man, but they act like they're meeting for the first time, so I don't know what that's about. They've traveled together before. And also a rose princess named Ozga, not to be confused with Ozma. And then they met up with the princess and very small, underwhelming army of Oogaboo, which is a kingdom within the land of Oz, and Queen Anne, I guess she's queen, wants to conquer the world. And so they're kind of temporarily teaming up so that Anne can conquer the Gnome Kingdom, and Shaggy Man just wants his brother. And Betsy has no goal. She's not like, oh gosh, I need to get home. I need to go talk to Ozma to be sent home. She's just like, whatever you want to do, I'm fine with that. What is this girl's deal? I kind of hope that he drops just an L. Frank bomb on us, you know, and like we learn something horrific or crazy about Betsy, because she's got like no background. She's got no friends or family as far as we know. She doesn't care what the fuck she's doing. It's crazy. So, but I will say this, she is less obnoxious than Dorothy. So there is that. It's just very curious. Pirithus, thank you for watching on YouTube. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you to everyone who is watching on YouTube and helping with those watch hours. Oh my goodness. Okay, now, if you are following along, we are starting back up with chapter 11. So let's get into it. Feel free to ask any questions, and we usually do like bigger chats between chapters, but we get distracted sometimes too. I'm doing my part. Well, welcome back, Mr. Nipple Twister. All right. Chapter 11. The Famous Fellowship of Fairies. After a short walk through very... sorry, I need to give this... I'm so sorry. The Gnome King was upset that they were invading his kingdom, and so he sent them through a tube to the other side of the world. That's important context. Hi, Casey King. They have come out the other end of the tube on the other side of the world. They have met someone who appears to be a prince, named Tubikins. On the other side of the tube. Come on, Frank. Anyways, that's it. Booyah shield. Oh wait, buy a shield. Booyah. Buy a shield. Welcome to chat. Hello. He might not be the prince, but he is wearing a crown. So the characters at least assume that he's royalty right now. We'll see. No, Tubikins has a crown. The other people in the room are invisible. What book today? It's called Tik-Tok of Oz. No, Tubikins is wearing the crown, I believe. Alright. Chapter 11. The Famous Fellowship of Fairies. After a short walk through very beautiful gardens, they came to the castle and followed Tubikins through the entrance and into a great domed chamber where he commanded them to be seated. From the crown which he wore, Betsy had thought this man must be the king of the country they were in. Yet, after he had seated all the strangers upon benches that were ranged in a semicircle before a high throne, Tubikins bowed humbly before the vacant throne, and in a flash became invisible and disappeared. Is there a way to become invisible without disappearing? Feels a little redundant, but okay. The hall was an immense place, but there seemed to be no one in it beside themselves. Presently, however, they heard a low cough near them, and here and there was the faint rustling of a robe and a slight patter as of footsteps. Then suddenly there rang out the clear tone of a bell, and at the sound all was changed. Gazing around the hall in bewilderment, they saw that it was filled with hundreds of men and women, all with beautiful faces and staring blue eyes, and all wearing scarlet robes and jeweled crowns upon their heads. In fact, these people seemed exact duplicates of Tubikins, and it was difficult to find any mark by which to tell them apart. Buy a shield. Thank you for the follow. Oh, thank you. My, what a lot of kings and queens, whispered Betsy to Polychrome, who sat beside her and appeared much interested in the scene, but not a bit worried. It certainly is a strange sight, was Polychrome's reply, but I cannot see how there can be more than one king or queen in any one country, for were these all rulers, no one could tell who was master. One of the kings who stood near and overheard this remark turned to her and said, "One who is master of himself is always a king, if only to himself. In this favored land all kings and queens are equal, and it is our privilege to bow before one supreme ruler, the private citizen." "Who's he?" inquired Betsy. As if to answer her, the clear tones of the bell again rang out, and instantly there appeared, seated in the throne, the man who was lord and master of all these royal ones. This fact was evident when, with one accord, they fell upon their knees and touched their foreheads to the floor. The private citizen was not unlike the others. except that his eyes were black instead of blue, and in the centers of the black irises glowed red sparks that seemed like coals of fire. But his features were very beautiful and dignified, and his manner composed and stately. Instead of the prevalent scarlet robe, he wore one of white, and the same dragon's head that decorated the others was embroidered upon its bosom. "What charge lies against these people, Tubekins?" he asked in quiet, even tones. "Oh, hiyo, darling. Hello. How you doing?" "They came through the forbidden tube, O mighty citizen," was the reply. "You see, it was this way," said Betsy. "We were marching to the Gnome King to conquer him and set Shaggy's brother free, when on a sudden—" "Who are you?" demanded the private citizen sternly. "Me? Oh, well, I'm Betsy Bobbin, and—" "Who is the leader of this party?" asked the citizen. "Sir, I am Queen Anne of Oogaboo, and—" "Then keep quiet," said the citizen. "Who is the leader?" No one answered for a moment. Then General Bun stood up. "Sit down," commanded the citizen. "I can see that 16 of you are merely officers, and of no account." "But we have an army," said General Clock, blusteringly, for he didn't like to be told he was of no account. "Where is your army?" asked the citizen. "It's me," said Tik-Tok, his voice sounding a little rusty. "I'm the only private soldier in the party." Hearing this, the citizen rose and bowed respectfully to the Clockwork Man. "Pardon me for not realizing your importance before," said he. "Will you oblige me by taking a seat beside me on my throne?" Tik-Tok rose and walked over to the throne, all the kings and queens making way for him. Then, with clanking steps, he mounted the platform and sat on the broad seat beside the citizen. Anne was greatly provoked at this mark of favor shown to the humble Clockwork Man, but Shaggy seemed much pleased that his old friend's importance had been recognized by the ruler of this remarkable country. The citizen now began to question Tik-Tok, who told in his mechanical voice about Shaggy's quest of his lost brother, and how Ozma of Oz had sent the Clockwork Man to assist him, and how they had fallen in with Queen Anne and her people from Oogaboo. Also, he told how Betsy and Hank and Polychrome and the Rose Princess had happened to join their party. "And you intended to conquer Ruggedo, the Metal Monarch and King of the Gnomes?" asked the citizen. "Yes, that seemed the only thing for us to do," was Tik-Tok's reply. "But he was too clever for us. When we got close to his cavern, he made our path lead to the tube and made the opening invisible so that we all fell into it before we knew it was there. It was an easy way to get rid of us, and now Ruggedo is safe, and we are far away in a strange land." The citizen was silent a moment and seemed to be thinking. Then he said, "Most noble private soldier, I must inform you that by the laws of our country, anyone who comes through the forbidden tube must be tortured for 9 days and 10 nights, and then thrown back into the tube. But it is wise to disregard laws when they conflict with justice, and it seems that you and your followers did not disobey our laws willingly, being forced into the tube by Ruggedo. Therefore, the Gnome King is alone to blame, and he alone must be punished." "That suits me," said Tik-Tok,
but Ruggedo is on the other side of the world, where he is away out of your reach.
The citizen drew himself up proudly. Do you imagine anything in the world, or upon it, can be out of the reach of the great Jinjin? He asked.
Oh, are you then the great Jinjin?
Inquired Tik-Tok. I am.
Then your name is Hoochu.
It is. Queen Anne gave a scream and began to tremble. Are you okay, Mac? What's going on? What's going on? Shaggy was so disturbed that he took out a handkerchief and wiped the perspiration from his brow. Polychrome looked sober and uneasy for the first time, while Files put his arms around the Rose Princess, as if to protect her. As for the officers, the name of the great Jinjin set them moaning and weeping at a great rate, and everyone fell upon his knees before the throne, begging for mercy. Betsy was worried at seeing her companions so disturbed, but did not know what it was all about. Only Tik-Tok was unmoved at the discovery.
Then, said he, if you are Hoochu and think Ruggedo is to blame, I am sure that something queer will happen to the King of Gnomes.
I wonder what 'twill be, said Betsy. The private citizen, otherwise known as Hoochu, the great Jinjin, looked at the little girl steadily. You're a fucking psychopath. Okay. I will presently decide what is to happen to Ruggedo, said he in a hard, stern voice. Then, turning to the throng of kings and queens, he continued, Tik-Tok has spoken truly, for his machinery will not allow him to lie, nor will it allow his thoughts to think falsely. Therefore these people are not our enemies, and must be treated with consideration and justice. Take them to your palaces and entertain them as guests until tomorrow, when I command they be brought again to my residence. By then I shall have formed my plans. What exactly is this you're doing? I'm just reading a book. Reading a book to you guys. Executioner Zorga, welcome in. Thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome. No sooner had Hoochu spoken than he disappeared from sight. Immediately after, most of the kings and queens likewise disappeared, but several of them remained visible and approached the strangers with great respect. One of the lovely queens said to Betsy, I trust you will honor me by being my guest. I am Irma, Queen of Light. May Hank come with me? Asked the girl. The king of animals will care for your mule, was the reply. But do not fear for him, for he will be treated royally. All your party will be reunited on the morrow. I'd like to have someone with me, said Betsy pleadingly. Queen Irma looked around and smiled upon Polychrome. Will the Rainbow's daughter be an agreeable companion? She asked. Oh, yes, exclaimed the girl. So, Polychrome and Betsy became guests of the Queen of Light, while the other beautiful kings and queens took charge of the others of the party. The two girls followed Irma out of the hall and through the gardens of the residence to a village of pretty dwellings. None of these was so large or imposing as the castle of the private citizen, but all were handsome enough to be called palaces, as in fact they really were. End of chapter. Hi, Leonardo, welcome. All right. Chapter 12. The Lovely Lady of Light. The palace of the Queen of Light stood on a little eminence and was a mass of crystal windows surmounted by a vast crystal dome. When they entered the portals, Irma was greeted by 6 lovely maidens, evidently of high degree, who at once aroused Betsy's admiration. Hold on, a little out of center on the vertical. There we go. That's a little better. The 2 bands do seem nice so far, yeah. Each bore a wand in her hand, tipped with an emblem of light, and their costumes were also emblematic of the lights they represented. Irma introduced them to her guests, and each made a graceful and courteous acknowledgement. First was Sunlight, radiantly beautiful and very fair. The second was Moonlight, a soft, dreamy damsel with nut-brown hair. Next came Starlight, equally lovely but inclined to be retiring and shy. These 3 were dressed in shimmering robes of silvery white. Hi, Anthony. Welcome back. How are you doing? The 4th was Daylight, a brilliant damsel with laughing eyes and frank manners, who wore a variety of colors. Then came Firelight, clothed in a fleecy, flame-colored robe that wavered around her shapely form in a very attractive manner. The 6th maiden, Electra, was the most beautiful of all, and Betsy thought from the first that both Sunlight and Daylight regarded Electra with envy and were a little jealous of her. Snigheden? I'm probably saying that wrong, but welcome and thank you for the follow. But all were cordial in their greetings to the strangers and seemed to regard the Queen of Light with much affection, for they fluttered around her in a flashing, radiant group as she led the way to her regal drawing room. This apartment was richly and cozily furnished, the upholstery being of many tints, and both Betsy and Polychrome enjoyed resting themselves upon the downy divans after their strenuous adventures of the day. Oh, this sounds good, Anthony. Nice. Hi, Sneak. Hello, hello. The Queen sat down to chat with her guests, who noticed that Daylight was the only maiden now seated beside Irma. The others had retired to another part of the room, where they sat modestly with entwined arms and did not intrude themselves at all. The Queen told the strangers all about this beautiful land, which is one of the chief residences of fairies who minister to the needs of mankind. So many important fairies lived there that, to avoid rivalry, they had elected as their ruler the only important personage in the country who had no duties to mankind to perform and was, in effect, a private citizen. This ruler, or Jinjin, as was his title, bore the name of Tititi Huchu, and the most singular thing about him was that he had no heart. Oh shit. Do you guys see what's gonna happen there? What will not work on him if he doesn't have a heart? I mean, maybe this won't be a plot point, but this feels relevant. Feels pretty relevant. Yes, I am live. I am live, AP. Hi. Yep. Alright. But instead of this, he possessed a high degree of reason and justice, and while he showed no mercy in his judgments, He never punished unjustly or without reason. To wrongdoers, Tititi Hoochoo was as terrible as he was heartless, but those who were innocent of evil had nothing to fear from him. All the kings and queens of this fairyland paid reverence to Jinjin, for as they expected to be obeyed by others, they were willing to obey the one in authority over them. The inhabitants of the land of Oz had heard many tales of this fearfully just Jinjin, whose punishments were always equal to the faults committed. Polychrome also knew of him, although this was the first time she had ever seen him face to face. But to Betsy, the story was all new, and she was greatly interested in Tititi Hoochoo, whom she no longer feared. Time sped swiftly during their talk, and suddenly Betsy noticed that Moonlight was sitting beside the Queen of Light instead of Daylight. "But tell me, please," she pleaded, "why do you all wear a dragon's head embroidered on your gowns?" Irma's pleasant face became grave as she answered. "The dragon, as you must know, was the first living creature ever made. Therefore, the dragon is the oldest and wisest of living things." Well, L. Frank Baum got something right for once. By good fortune, the original dragon, who still lives, is a resident of this land and supplies us with wisdom whenever we are in need of it. He is old as the world and remembers everything that has happened since the world was created. "Did he ever have any children?" inquired the girl. "Yes, many of them. Some wandered into other lands where men, not understanding them, made war upon them. But many still reside in this country. None, however, is as wise as the original dragon, for whom we have great respect. As he was the first resident here, we wear the emblem of the dragon's head to show that we are the favored people who alone have the right to inhabit this fairyland, which, in beauty, almost equals the fairyland of Oz, and in power, quite surpasses it." "I understand about the dragon now," said Polychrome, nodding her lovely head. Betsy did not quite understand, but she was at present interested in observing the changing lights. As Daylight had given way to Moonlight, so now Starlight sat at the right hand of Irma the Queen, and with her coming a spirit of peace and content. And with her coming, a spirit of peace and content seemed to fill the room. Polychrome, being herself a fairy, had many questions to ask about the various kings and queens who lived in this faraway, secluded place, and before Irma had finished answering them, a rosy glow filled the air, and Firelight took her place beside the Queen. Betsy liked Firelight, but to gaze upon her warm and glowing features made the little girl sleepy, and presently she began to nod. Thereupon Irma rose and took Betsy's hand gently in her own. "Come," she said, "the feast time has arrived, and the feast is spread." "That's nice," exclaimed the small mortal. "Now that I think of it, I'm awful hungry. But perhaps I can't eat your fairy food." The Queen smiled and led her to a doorway. As she pushed aside a heavy drapery, a flood of silver light greeted them, and Betsy saw before her a splendid banquet hall, with a table spread with snowy linen and crystal and silver. At one side was a broad, throne-like seat for Irma, and beside her now sat the brilliant maid, Electra. Polychrome was placed on the Queen's right hand, and Betsy upon her left. The other 5 messengers of light now waited upon them, and each person was supplied with just the food she liked best. Polychrome found her dish of dewdrops, all fresh and sparkling, while Betsy was so lavishly served that she decided she had never in her life eaten a dinner half so good. "I suppose," she said to the Queen, "that Miss Electra is the youngest of all these girls." "Why do you suppose that?" inquired Irma with a smile. "'Cause electricity is the newest light we know of. Didn't Mr. Edison discover it?" "Perhaps he was the first mortal to discover it," replied the Queen. "But electricity was a part of the world from its creation, and therefore my Electra is as old as daylight or moonlight, and equally beneficent to mortals and fairies alike." Betsy was thoughtful for a time. Then she remarked, as she looked at the 6 messengers of light, "We couldn't very well do without any of them, could we?" Irma laughed softly. "I couldn't, I'm sure," she replied, "and I think mortals would miss any one of my maidens as well. Daylight cannot take the place of sunlight, which gives us strength and energy. Moonlight is of value when daylight, worn out from her long watch, retires to rest. If the moon in its course is hidden behind the earth's rim, and my sweet moonlight cannot cheer us, starlight takes her place, for the skies always lend her power. Without firelight, we should miss much of our warmth and comfort, as well as much cheer when the walls of houses encompass us. But always, when other lights forsake us, our glorious Electra is ready to flood us with bright rays. As Queen of Light, I love all my maidens, for I know them to be faithful and true." "I love him too," declared Betsy, "but sometimes, when I'm real sleepy, I can get along without any light at all." "Are you sleepy now?" inquired Irma, for the feast had ended. "A little," admitted the girl. So Electra showed her to a pretty chamber where there was a soft white bed, and waited patiently until Betsy had undressed and put on a shimmery silken nightrobe that lay beside her pillow. Then the light maid bade her good night and opened the door. When she closed it after her, Betsy was in darkness. In 6 winks, the little girl was fast asleep. End of chapter. What are you guys thinking? Research Monkey, thank you for the follow. Hello, hello. How's it going? Palm's monarchy fetish. You can't call him out on that. These are all American fairy tales. Night has reflected sunlight. Shh, Hadoken, don't break the illusion. Alright. Chapter 13. The Jinjin's Just Judgment. All the adventurers were reunited next morning, when they were brought from various places to the residence of Tititi Huchu and ushered into the great hall of state. Hi, Antenna, good to see you. Okay. As before, no one was visible except our friends and their escorts until the first bell sounded. Then, in a flash, the room was seen to be filled with the beautiful kings and queens of the land. The second bell marked the appearance in the throne of the mighty Jinjin, whose handsome countenance was as composed and expressionless as ever. All bowed low to the ruler. Their voices softly murmured, "We greet the private citizen, mightiest of rulers, whose word is law and whose law is just." Tititi Huchu bowed in acknowledgement. Then, looking around the brilliant assemblage and at the little group of adventurers before him, he said, "An unusual thing has happened. Inhabitants of other lands than ours, who are different from ourselves in many ways, have been thrust upon us through the forbidden tube, which one of our people foolishly made years ago, and was properly punished for his folly. But these strangers had no desire to come here, and were wickedly thrust into the tube by a cruel king on the other side of the world, named Ruggedo. This king is an immortal, but he is not good. His magic powers hurt mankind more than they benefit them. Because he had unjustly kept the Shaggy Man's brother a prisoner, this little band of honest people, consisting of both mortals and immortals, determined to conquer Ruggedo and to punish him. Fearing they might succeed in this, the Gnome King misled them so that they fell into the tube. Now, this same Ruggedo has been warned by me many times that if ever he used this forbidden tube in any way, he would be severely punished. I find, by referring to the fairy records, that this king's servant, a gnome named Calico, begged his master not to do such a wrong act as to drop these people into the tube and send them tumbling into our country. But Ruggedo defied me and my orders. Therefore, these strangers are innocent of any wrong. It is only Ruggedo who deserves punishment, and I will punish him." He paused a moment and then continued in the same cold, merciless voice. "These strangers must return through the tube to their own side of the world, but I will make their fall more easy and pleasant than it was before. Also, I shall send with them an instrument of vengeance, who in my name will drive Ruggedo from his underground caverns, take away his magic powers, and make him a homeless wanderer on the face of the earth, a place he detests." There was a little murmur of horror from the kings and queens at the severity of this punishment, but no one uttered a protest, for all realized that the sentence was just. Hi, Brian. Good to see you. Nick, thank you for that 15 stream streak. Hi. "In selecting my instrument of vengeance," went on to Titi Hoochoo, "I have realized that this will be an unpleasant punishment." Oh no, wait, sorry. Kindle did a thing. "I have realized that this will be an unpleasant mission. Therefore, no one of us who is blameless should be forced to undertake it. In this wonderful land, it is seldom one is guilty of wrong, even in the slightest degree. And on examining the records, I found no king or queen had erred, nor had any among their followers or servants done any wrong. But finally, I came to the dragon's family, which we highly respect. And then it was that I discovered the error of Quox. Quox, as you well know, is a young dragon who has not yet acquired the wisdom of his race. Because of this lack, he has been disrespectful toward his most ancient ancestor, the original dragon, telling him once to mind his own business, and again saying that the ancient one had grown foolish with age. We are aware that dragons are not the same as fairies, and cannot be altogether guided by our laws. Yet such disrespect as Quox has shown should not be unnoticed by us. Therefore I have selected Quox as my royal instrument of vengeance, and he shall go through the tube with these people and inflict upon Ruggedo the punishment I have decreed." All had listened quietly to this speech, and now the kings and queens bowed gravely to signify their approval of the Jinjin's judgment. Tititi Hoochoo turned to Tubekins. I command you, said he, to escort these strangers to the tube and see that they all enter it. The king of the tube, who had first discovered our friends and brought them to the private citizen, stepped forward and bowed. As he did so, the Jin and all the kings and queens suddenly disappeared, and only Tubekins remained visible. All right, said Betsy with a sigh. I don't mind going back so very much, because the Jin promised to make it easy for us. Indeed, Queen Anne and her officers were the only ones who looked solemn and seemed to fear the return journey. One thing that bothered Anne was her failure to conquer this land of Tititi Hoochoo. As they followed their guide through the gardens to the mouth of the tube, she said to Shaggy, How can I conquer the world if I go away and leave this rich country unconquered? Well, you can't, he replied. Don't ask me why, please, for if you don't know, I can't inform you. Why not? Said Anne, but Shaggy paid no attention to the question. This end of the tube had a silver rim, and around it was a gold railing, to which was attached a sign that read, If you are out, stay there. If you are in, don't come out. On a little silver plate just inside the tube was engraved the words, Burrowed and built by Hiargargo the magician in the year of the world 19,625,478 for his own exclusive uses. Well, he was some builder, I must say, remarked Betsy when she had read the inscription. But if he had known about that star, I guess he'd have spent his time playing solitaire. Oh, Betsy, what? That's not... it's not funny. Betsy, you're bumming me out, man. Well, what are we waiting for? Inquired Shaggy, who was impatient to start. Quawks, replied Tubekins, but I think I hear him coming. Is the young dragon invisible? Asked Anne, who had never seen a live dragon and was a little fearful of meeting one. No, indeed, replied the king of the tube. You'll see him in a minute. But before you part company, I'm sure you'll wish he was invisible. Was he dangerous, then? Questioned Files. Not at all, but Quawks tires me dreadfully, said Tubekins, and I prefer his room to his company. At that instant, a scraping sound was heard, drawing nearer and nearer, until from between two big bushes appeared a huge dragon, who approached the party, nodded his head, and said, Good morning. Now, had Quawks been at all bashful, I'm sure he would have felt uncomfortable at the astonished stare of every eye in the group, except Tubekins, of course, who was not astonished because he had seen Quawks so often. Betsy had thought a young dragon must be a small dragon, yet here was one so enormous that the girl decided he must be full-grown, if not overgrown. His body was a lovely sky blue in color, and it was thickly set with glittering silver scales, each one as big as a serving tray. Around his neck was a pink ribbon with a bow just underneath his left ear, and below the ribbon appeared a chain of pearls, to which was attached a golden locket about as large around as the end of a bass drum. This locket was set with many large and beautiful jewels. The head and face of Quawks were not especially ugly, when you consider that he was a dragon. What the fuck, Bomb? What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say, L. Frank? But his eyes were so large that it took him a long time to wink, and his teeth seemed very sharp and terrible when they showed, which they did whenever the beast smiled. Also, his nostrils were quite large and wide, and those who stood near him were liable to smell brimstone, especially when he breathed out fire, as it is the nature of dragons to do. To the end of his long tail was attached a big electric light. Hi, Arya. Hello, how are you? Yes, slow motion winking. Perhaps the most singular thing about the dragon's appearance at this time was the fact that he had a row of seats attached to his back, one seat for each member of the party. These seats were double with curved backs, so that two could sit in them, and there were 12 of these double seats, all strapped firmly around the dragon's thick body and placed one behind the other in a row that extended from his shoulders nearly to his tail. "Aha!" exclaimed Tubekins. "I see that Tititi Hoochoo has transformed Quox into a carryall." "I'm glad of that," said Betsy. "I hope, Mr. Dragon, you won't mind our riding on your back." Okay, what do you guys think about that dragon voice? Just doing gravelly. Should it be something else? Requests for, like, what kind of dragon voice should he have? Oh, thank you, Arya. I'm glad you can be here. Hi, good fellow. Yeah, he is young. So should he have, like, a young voice?
Hi, I'm Quox.
Is that a good young dragon voice? Yeah? Okay.
Not a bit, replied Quox. I'm in disgrace.
Oh wait, surely will be grumpy. I mean, he's maybe a bit grumpy, but he's also young. Yeah. Dragons should have a gravelly or rough voice before they breathe fire, right? Okay.
Not a bit, replied Quox. I'm in disgrace just now, you know, and the only way to redeem my good name is to obey the orders of the Jinjin. If he makes me a beast of burden, well, it is only a part of my punishment, and I must bear it like a dragon. I don't blame you people at all, and I hope you'll enjoy the ride. Hop on, please. All aboard for the other side of the world.
Silently, they took their places. Hank sat in the front seat with Betsy, so that he could rest his front hoofs upon the dragon's head. Behind them were Shaggy and Polychrome, then Files and the princess, and Queen Anne and Tik-Tok. The officers rode in the rear seats. When all had mounted to their places, the dragon looked very like one of those sightseeing wagons so common in big cities, only he had legs instead of wheels. Oh no, Ray Ray. They've basically got a dragon bus.
All ready?
Asked Quox, and when they said they were, he crawled to the mouth of the tube and put his head in. "Goodbye, and good luck to you," called Tubekins. But no one thought to reply, because just then the dragon slid his great body into the tube, and the journey to the other side of the world had begun. Hello, welcome in. You want to ride on a dragon bus? Heck yeah. But only if they're, like, happy about it. Obviously. Okay. At first, they went so fast that they could scarcely catch their breaths. But presently, Quox slowed up and said, with a sort of cackling laugh,
My scales, but that is some tumble. I think I shall take it easy and fall slower, or I'm likely to get dizzy. Is it very far to the other side of the world?
Haven't you ever been through this tube before? Inquired Shaggy.
Never, nor has anyone else in our country, at least not since I was born.
How long ago was that? Asked Betsy. that I was born? Oh, not very long ago. Well, I'm only a mere child. If I had not been sent on this journey, I would have celebrated my 3056th birthday next Thursday. Mother was going to make me a birthday cake with 3056 candles on it. Now, of course, there will be no celebration, for I fear I shall not get home in time for it. 3056 years, cried Betsy. Why, I had no idea anything could live that long. My respected ancestor, whom I would call a stupid old humbug, if I had not reformed, is so old that I am a mere baby compared with him, said Quox. He dates from the beginning of the world and insists on telling us stories of things that happened 50,000 years ago, which are of no interest at all to youngsters like me. In fact, Grandpa isn't up to date. He lives altogether in the past, so I can't see any good reason for his being alive today. Are you people able to see your way, or shall I turn on more light? Oh, we can see very nicely, thank you. Only there's nothing to see but ourselves, answered Betsy. This was true. The dragon's big eyes were like headlights on an automobile and illuminated the tube far ahead of them. Also, he curled his tail upward so that the electric light on the end of it enabled them to see one another quite clearly. But the tube itself was only dark metal, smooth as glass, but exactly the same from one of its ends to the other. Therefore, there was no scenery of interest to beguile the journey. They were now falling so gently that the trip was proving entirely comfortable, as the Jinjin had promised it would be. But this meant a longer journey, and the only way they could make time pass was to engage in conversation. Now, the dragon seemed a willing and persistent talker, and he was of so much interest to them that they encouraged him to chatter. His voice was a little gruff, but not unpleasant when one became used to it. My only fear, said he presently, is that this constant sliding over the surface of the tube will dull my claws. You see, this hole isn't straight down, but on a steep slant, and so instead of tumbling freely through the air, I must skate along the tube. Fortunately, there's a file in my toolkit, and if my claws get dull, they can be sharpened again. Well, why do you want sharp claws? Asked Betsy. Well, they're my natural weapons. You must not forget that I have been sent to conquer Ruggedo. Oh, you didn't mind about that, remarked Queen Anne in her most haughty manner. For when we get to Ruggedo, I and my invincible army can conquer him without your assistance. Very good, returned the dragon cheerfully. That will save me a lot of bother, if you succeed. But I think I shall file my claws just the same. Hi, Taco Cat. Thank you for the lurk. Oso, thank you. And Sloth, hello, and thank you for that 7-stream streak. I am now Pleag. Hello, hello. He gave a long sigh as he said this, and a sheet of flame, several feet in length, shot from his mouth. Betsy shuddered, and Hank said, "Hee-haw," while some of the officers screamed in terror. But the dragon did not notice that he had done anything unusual. Is there fire inside of you? Asked Shaggy. Of course, answered Quox. What sort of dragon would I be if my fire went out? What keeps it going? Betsy inquired. I have no idea. I only know it's there, said Quox. The fire keeps me alive and enables me to move. Also, to think and speak.
Ah, you are very much like myself, said Tik-Tok. The only difference is that I move by clockwork, while you move by fire.
Well, I don't see a particle of likeness between us, I must confess, retorted Quox gruffly. You are not a live thing. You're a dummy.
But I can do things, you must admit,
said Tik-Tok. Yes, when you're wound up, sneered the dragon. But if you run down, you're helpless. What would happen to you, Quox, if you ran out of gasoline? Inquired Shaggy, who did not like this attack upon his friend. Well, I don't use gasoline. Well, suppose you ran out of fire. What's the use of supposing that? Asked Quox. My great-great-great-grandfather has lived since the world began, and he's never once run out of fire to keep him going. But I will confide to you that as he gets older, he shows more smoke and less fire. As for Tik-Tok, well, he's well enough in his way, but he's merely copper. And the Metal Monarch knows copper through and through. I wouldn't be surprised if Ruggedo melted Tik-Tok in one of his furnaces and made copper pennies of him.
In that case, I would still keep going,
remarked Tik-Tok calmly. Pennies do, said Betsy regretfully. This is all nonsense, said the Queen with irritation. Tik-Tok is my great army, all but the officers, and I believe he will be able to conquer Ruggedo with ease. What do you think, Polychrome? You might let him try, answered the Rainbow's Daughter, with her sweet ringing laugh that sounded like the tinkling of tiny bells. And if Tik-Tok fails, you have still the big fire-breathing dragon to fall back on. Ah, said the dragon, another sheet of flame gushing from his mouth and nostrils. It's a wise little girl, this Polychrome. Anyone would know she is a fairy. End of chapter. You hate that they treat Tik-Tok like he's not alive. Yeah, I mean, he's technically not, but it does mess with, like, our empathy of the character. Well, and actually Tik-Tok, the character, his name is spelled Tik -Tok. So, wish you could stay longer tonight, please. We gotta work early. Oh, that's so kind. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I hope you have a good sleep and a good day at work, and maybe we'll see you again in the future. Yeah, it is spelled Tik-Tok. Yeah. Hi, Uberku. Good to see you again. Does the app have is it hyphenated? I actually can't think of whether it is. I wonder if whoever named the app was, like, aware of the character. Like, I wonder if it was an homage in any way. Oz books were always weird to you. They're weird, Taco Cat. They're very weird. Yeah. Oh, hi, oh, darling. You're loving story time. Finally glad you don't have to work tomorrow. You can stay longer. Yay. Oh, I'm so glad that you get to join us tonight. Should we jump into the next chapter? Chapter 14. The Long-Eared Hearer. Now, this is a character it's a longer title than that. The Long-Eared Hearer is a character that we met a few chapters ago. He's one of the gnomes. He works for the Gnome King. He has abnormally large ears, and that means that he can hear further away. So we'll see. Okay. Chapter 14. The Long-Eared Hearer learns by listening. During this time, Ruggedo, the Metal Monarch and King of the Gnomes, was trying to amuse himself in his splendid, jeweled cavern. It was hard work for Ruggedo to find amusement today, for all the gnomes were behaving well, and there was no one to scold or to punish. The king had thrown his scepter at Calico 6 times without hitting him once. Not that Calico had done anything wrong. On the contrary, he had obeyed the king in every way but one. He would not stand still when commanded to do so, and let the heavy scepter strike him. Sorry, I'm just gonna let that car finish being loud. Okay. Well, we can hardly blame Calico for this, and even the cruel Ruggedo forgave him, for he knew very well that if he mashed his royal chamberlain, he could never find another so intelligent and obedient. Calico could make the gnomes work when their king could not, for the gnomes hated Ruggedo, and there were so many thousands of the quaint little underground people that they could easily have rebelled and defied the king had they dared to do so. Sometimes, when Ruggedo abused them worse than usual, they grew sullen and threw down their hammers and picks. Then, however hard the king scolded or whipped them, they would not work until Calico came and begged them to. For Calico was one of themselves, and was as much abused by the king as any gnome in the vast series of caverns. But today, all the little people were working industriously at their tasks, and Ruggedo, having nothing to do, was greatly bored. He sent for the long-eared hearer and asked him to listen carefully and report what was going on in the big world. "Well, it seems," said the hearer, after listening for a while, "that the women in America have clubs." "Well, there's spikes in them?" asked Ruggedo, yawning. "I can't hear any spikes, your majesty," was the reply. "Then their clubs are not as good as my scepter. What else do you hear?" "There's a war." "Bah, there's always a war. What else?" For a time, the hearer was silent, bending forward and spreading out his big ears to catch the slightest sound. Then suddenly, he said, "Well, here's an interesting thing, your majesty. These people are arguing as to who shall conquer... Sorry. These people are arguing as to who shall conquer the metal monarch, seize his treasure, and drive him from his dominions." "What people?" demanded Ruggedo, sitting up straight in his throne. "The ones you threw down the hollow tube." "Where are they now?" "In the same tube, and coming back this way," said the hearer. Ruggedo got out of his throne and began to pace up and down the cavern. Welcome in, and thank you for the follow. You suck, PP. So lovely to have you join us. Also, hi, Batman. Hi, Tyrene. Hi, Lima. Okay. "I wonder what can be done to stop them," he mused. "Well," said the hearer, "if you could turn the tube upside down, well, they'd be falling the other way, your majesty." Ruggedo glared at him wickedly, for it was impossible to turn the tube upside down, and he believed the hearer was slyly poking fun at him. Presently, he asked, "How far away are those people now?" "About 9,306 miles, 17 furlongs, 8 feet and 4 inches, as nearly as I can judge from the sound of their voices," replied the hearer. Yeah, that brought a few people out of lurk, that name. "Aha,
Then it will be some time before they arrive, said Ruggedo, and when they get here, I shall be ready to receive them.
He rushed to his gong and pounded upon it so fiercely that Calico came bounding into the cavern with one shoe off and one shoe on, for he was just dressing himself after a swim in the hot, bubbling lake of the underground kingdom.
Calico, those invaders whom we threw down the tube are coming back again, he exclaimed.
Well, I thought they would, said the royal chamberlain, pulling on the other shoe. Tititi Hoochoo would not allow them to remain in his kingdom, of course, and so I've been expecting them back for some time. Well, that was a very foolish action of yours, Rug.
What? To throw them down the tube?
Yes, Tititi Hoochoo has forbidden us to throw even rubbish into the tube.
What do I care for the Jin-Jin? Asked Ruggedo scornfully. He never leaves his own kingdom, which is on the other side of the world.
True, but he might send someone through the tube to punish you, suggested Calico.
I'd like to see him do it. Who could conquer my thousands of gnomes?
Well, they've been conquered before, if I remember aright, answered Calico with a grin. Once, I saw you running from a little girl named Dorothy and her friends, as if you were really afraid.
Well, I was afraid that time, admitted the Gnome King with a deep sigh. Dorothy had a yellow hen that laid eggs.
The king shuddered as he said eggs, and Calico also shuddered, and so did the long-eared hearer, for eggs are the only things that the gnomes greatly dread. The reason for this is that eggs belong on the earth's surface, where birds and fowl of all sorts live, and there is something about a hen's egg, especially, that fills a gnome with horror. If by chance the inside of an egg touches one of these underground people, he withers up and blows away, and that is the end of him, unless he manages quickly to speak a magical word, which only a few of the gnomes know. Therefore Ruggedo and his followers had very good cause to shudder at the mere mention of eggs. That's also a retcon, not the egg part, because they did defeat him. Build the chicken laid a bunch of eggs, and they threw the eggs at him. But the whole they turn into dust and blow away unless they speak a magic word, that was never mentioned before. Impressive. Wait. Impressive. Thank you for gifting a sub to Hadoken. That is so kind of you. Thank you. Your Ruggedo voice kind of sounds like the Grinch from Jim Carrey. Wait, does it? It's been so long since I've seen that movie. Just realized this tube thing is where they got the idea for the plot, that awful remake of The Running Man. Oh, I haven't seen it. And Taco Cat, thank you for those 100 biddies. Thank you. It is interesting, Tyraine. It's just never been mentioned before, so we have to assume that the Gnome King, that Ruggedo knows the word, and that he was saying it after every time that he got hit with an egg in the previous book. Alright.
But Dorothy, said the king, is not with this band of invaders, nor is the yellow hen. As for Tititi Hoochoo, he has no means of knowing that we are afraid of eggs.
Well, you mustn't be too sure of that, Calico warned him. Tititi Hoochoo knows a great many things, being a fairy, and his powers are far superior to any we can boast.
Impressive. Thank you for the 100 biddies. Also, welcome in. Thank you for the follow. Tales from the Grim. Ooh. Am I to guess that you enjoy fairy tales? Welcome, welcome. It is a pretty intense retcon, yeah. Yep. And other tales. Well, wonderful. It's good to have you here. We read a good amount of fairy tales here. Hi, Tyra. Things are going all right. How are they doing for you? Oof. Okay. Ruggedo shrugged impatiently and turned to the hearer.
Listen, said he, and tell me if you hear any eggs coming through the tube.
The long-eared one listened and then shook his head, but Calico laughed at the king.
No one can hear an egg, Your Majesty, said he. The only way to discover the truth is to look through the magic spyglass.
Well, that's it, cried the king. Why didn't I think of it before? Look at once, Calico.
So Calico went to the spyglass, and by uttering a mumbled charm, he caused the other end of it to twist around, so that it pointed down the opening of the tube. Then he put his eye to the glass and was able to gaze along all the turns and windings of the magic spyglass, and then deep into the tube to where our friends were at that time falling.
Dear me, he exclaimed. Here comes a dragon.
A big one?
Asked Ruggedo. A monster. He has an electric light on the end of his tail, so I can't see him very plainly. And the other people are all riding upon his back.
Well, how about eggs?
Inquired the king. Calico looked again.
I can see no eggs at all, said he, but I imagine that the dragon is as dangerous as eggs. Probably Tititi Hoochoo has sent him here to punish you for dropping those strangers into the forbidden tube. I warned you not to do it, Your Majesty.
This news made the Gnome King anxious. For a few minutes he paced up and down, stroking his long beard and thinking with all his might. After this, he turned to Calico and said,
All the harm a dragon can do is to scratch with his claws and bite with his teeth.
Well, that is not all, but it's quite enough, returned Calico earnestly. On the other hand, no one can hurt a dragon, because he's the toughest creature alive. One flop of his huge tail could smash 100 gnomes to pancakes, and with teeth and claws he could tear even you or me into small bits, so that it would be almost impossible to put us together again. Once, a few hundred years ago, while wandering through some deserted caverns, I came upon a small piece of a gnome lying on the rocky floor. I asked the piece of gnome what had happened to it. Fortunately, the mouth was a part of this piece, the mouth and the left eye, so it was able to tell me that a fierce dragon was the cause. It had attacked the poor gnome and scattered him in every direction, and as there was no friend near to collect his pieces and put him together, they had been separated for a great many years. So you see, Your Majesty, it is not in good taste to sneer at a dragon.
Oh my god, that's horrific. Are all the pieces equally sentient? That's horrible. Hi, Zen. Hi, Floral. Hello, hello. And Alima Crazy. Thank you for gifting a sub to You Suck PP. Oh, you've been lurking, Floral. Oh. I guess they're immortal. Well, no, all the residents of Oz are, and I'm assuming that extends to the other fairy countries. Like, that is what happens. Even the, Queen Anne's army, they were talking, if they got sliced bits, they wouldn't die. Which is crazy. They can't die. Okay. The king had listened attentively to Calico. Oh yeah, if an egg turned them to dust, are all the grains of dust sentient still? Are they still technically alive? gnome with gorilla tape invincible. You have to go to sleep, Ray Ray. That's okay. You got a party to go to in the morning. Well, I'm glad you were able to hang out. I will next be live on Sunday night. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. They can make it seem like they cannot be put back together after being... Right. Well, no, because you'd be like sand at that point. So you could not be put back together, but could... Like, would you still be alive, technically? But just fucked for all eternity. Yeah, that's horrific. That actually makes an egg, like, a horrible, horrible weapon. Okay. The king had listened attentively to Calico. Said he,
"It will only be necessary to chain this dragon which Tititi Hoochoo has sent here, in order to prevent his reaching us with his claws and teeth."
He also breathes flames, Calico reminded him.
"My gnomes are not afraid of fire, nor am I,"
said Ruggedo. Well, how about the army of Ookaboo?
16 cowardly officers and Tik-Tok. I could defeat them single-handed, but I won't try to. I'll summon my army of gnomes to drive the invaders out of my territory, and if we catch any of them, I intend to stick needles into them until they hop with pain.
I hope you won't hurt any of the girls, said Calico.
"I'll hurt 'em all," roared the angry metal monarch, "and that braying mule I'll make into hoof soup, and feed it to my gnomes, that it may add to their strength."
Why not be good to the strangers and release your prisoner, the Shaggy Man's brother? Suggested Calico.
"Never."
It may save you a lot of annoyance, and you don't want the ugly one.
Black Dragon, welcome in. Thank you for the raid. Hello, hello. Oh my goodness. Hi, Milu. Welcome in, you guys. How was your stream tonight? What were you guys getting up to? We are reading Tik-Tok of Oz. We are currently in a scene with the Gnome King. Really, Muse? That's so cute. Aw. Welcome, welcome. Oh, thanks for doing that shout out. Yes, you guys, make sure you are dropping a follow for Black Dragon Tavern Gaming if you're looking for another cozy place to hang out, some more storytelling and book reading. Hello, hello, how are you? How's it going? Yeah, we are making steady progress with this book so far. Followed him at once, hell yeah. Good job, Sir Nipple Twister the Third. Man, we are getting some wild usernames in here today. Alright, well, get cozy, you guys. We're gonna do a bit more reading, and then probably a bit of just like dedicated ASMR triggers afterwards to get super cozy and ready for sleep. Happy to be home and back in the tavern. Heck yeah. Impressive. Thank you for gifting us up to Tyra. Thank you, thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you. All right. Okay. So, his Chamberlain is trying to talk him out of being stupid. That's what's going on. Emerald's Lady, thank you for the follow. What book is this? This is called Tik-Tok of Oz. It is book number 8 in the Wizard of Oz series. We have read the previous 7 on stream. We space them out because there's only so much L. Frank Baum you can take in one go. But we like to read them and kind of poke holes in them, and they're weird. They're just so weird. We also play Wizard of Oz bingo, so that's a thing we're doing as well. All right.
It may save you a lot of annoyance, and you don't want the ugly one.
I don't want him, that's true. But I won't allow anybody to order me around. I'm king of the gnomes, and I'm the metal monarch. And I shall do as I please, and what I please, and when I please.
With this speech, Ruggedo threw his scepter at Calico's head, aiming it so well that the royal chamberlain had to fall flat upon the floor in order to escape it. But the hearer did not see the scepter coming, and it swept past his head so closely that it broke off the tip of one of his long ears. He gave a dreadful yell that quite startled Ruggedo, and the king was sorry for the accident because those long ears of the hearer were really valuable to him. So, the Gnome King forgot to be angry with Calico and ordered his chamberlain to summon General Guff and the army of gnomes and have them properly armed. They were then to march to the mouth of the tube, where they could seize the travelers as soon as they appeared. Oh, my neck is so stiff today. Okay. All right. We will read at least one more chapter. This is chapter 15 we're about to start. Again, reminder, if you'd like to follow along, there's a pinned comment in all of the chats where you can find this book for free. Thank you for the stretch redeem. Also, just a reminder to people on Twitch that if you are able to open up the YouTube stream, that is incredibly helpful. Even if you're just lurking over there, it really helps with the watch hours that we're working on building up. So hi Brawl, hello. Alright, let me just put on some lip balm because my lips get so chapped while I read. God, the Oz books, possibly more than any other books, really just makes me exercise voices. Like, the change in voices is so extreme in these, more than anything else we read, I think. You're all cozy, Floral. Oh, good. Oh, good. Okay. Chapter 15. The Dragon Defies. Oh. The dragon defies danger. Although the journey through the tube was longer this time than before, it was so much more comfortable that none of our friends minded it at all. They talked together most of the time, and as they found the dragon good-natured and fond of the sound of his own voice, they soon became well acquainted with him and accepted him as a companion.
Oh, you see, said Shaggy in his frank way, Quarks is on our side, and therefore the dragon is a good fellow. If he happened to be an enemy instead of a friend, I'm sure I should dislike him very much, for his breath smells of brimstone. He's very conceited, and he is so strong and fierce that he would prove a dangerous foe. 5 Twitch streams in the background. What's another YouTube? Aw, well, Grim, thank you. And, Malum Taco Cat, thanks for opening up a YouTube stream. And, oh, Muse, that's totally fair. Yeah, no need to, like, chat over there. Like, just having it open on Lurk is helpful. Yeah. Oh, this is not, this is more like a general information thing, because a lot of people, it was kind of announced just a few months ago as like clearing up misconceptions, just bouncing off of your comment, Grim, but this is not me, like, this is not a negative comment at all. But did you guys hear that Twitch said that if you are lurking in
more than 2 chats, like say you have several streams open like that, which a lot of people do, right? Like that's very common. But if you have more than 2 open, you don't count as a viewer in any of them. Isn't that wild? It may say that you're like connected to chat or whatever, but it's always been the case, but they've never like defined it or declared it. Yeah. You don't care about the views. No, totally, Fidge. That's why I'm not saying like it's a bad thing or that people doing that should stop. Like if they want to have that open, that's fine. But sometimes people will be like, oh, I'm only lurking to like support my friends, and so I'm gonna have like 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 streams open. If your only reason for doing it is to add a view onto like streamers that you want to support, then that doesn't actually do it. But if you're doing it because you actually want all the streams open, then yeah, go ham. Ash, I think in some cases it sometimes can be 3, but they were so weird about it that like 2 is the only one you can guarantee. So, yeah. You always have, yeah. And that's totally fine if that's like because you're checking in on all of them, or sometimes I'll have like different, like I've got ASMR playing and a gaming stream playing, and like, you know, like things that kind of almost harmonize. I did say ham. Yeah, I'm allowed to. So yeah, this isn't me saying like don't do that, but some people are doing it specifically because they want to support their friends or the streamers that they like, which is really kind of them. But if you have more than 2 open, then it defeats that purpose. So it's just worth sharing the info. There's been a lot of speculation, and there still is. Like, you see a lot of people getting angry about it online, and a lot of it is, yeah, misinformation. So it was good for them to be like, here is some concrete information about that. Yeah. If you're interacting on all of them, doesn't matter. Yeah. Only up to 2 Twitch streams per IP address will count towards the platform's viewer metrics. Yeah. Yeah, so if you have like multiple people in the same house, it can get really shitty. But yeah, just good information. Like, do what you want to do, but just like being aware of that. If your only purpose is, because I think there are even like extensions or whatever you can download that when like people in your followers list go live, it just opens up a tab, and the point was that you can automatically drop a lurk. So you have people sometimes dropping lurks for like dozens of people, but they're not counting as a viewer for any of them. Yeah, gonna have to break out your old 20 phone mining setup. No, but I think it's like by IP address, so even with a different device. VPN might be the way around it if you're very dedicated, I guess. Yeah. It is, yeah, it would be particularly frustrating if you've got like multiple people watching Twitch in the same house. But yeah. If you're actually like engaging with them and like chatting, don't worry about it. Yeah. Taco Cat found a stray ham. Oh my god. I'm like low-key impressed. You didn't fall in the ham trap. Okay. Alright. Sorry for that tangent. I just there is a lot of confusion about it, so I'm like, it's a good thing to like inform people. Yeah. You passed out, Logatone. Uh-oh. Did I just wake you up? You burnt out a GPU by playing games and having multiple Twitch streams open. Multi-tab is not... Wow. Alright, let's jump back into it. Okay. His breath smells like brimstone. He's very conceited, and he is so strong and fierce that he would prove a dangerous foe.
Yes, indeed.
Sorry. I need to find my Quox voice again. Hey, I'm a young dragon.
Yes, indeed,
returned Quox, who had listened to this speech with pleasure.
I suppose I am about as terrible as any living thing. I'm glad you find me conceited, for that proves I know my good qualities. As for my breath smelling of brimstone, I really can't help it. And I once met a man whose breath smelled of onions, which I consider far worse.
Bro, the thing that makes both those things smell bad is sulfur, though. Like, onions and brimstone. It's sulfur. It's the same stink source. So don't get too high and mighty there, Quox.
I don't, said Betsy. I love onions.
Psychopath.
And I love brimstone, declared the dragon. So don't let us quarrel over one another's peculiarities.
Saying this, he breathed a long breath and shot a flame 50 feet from his mouth. The brimstone made Betsy cough, but she remembered about the onions and said nothing. They had no idea how far they had gone through the center of the earth, nor when to expect the trip to end. At one time, the little girl remarked,
I wonder when we'll reach the bottom of this hole. And isn't it funny, Shaky Man, that what is the bottom to us now was the top when we fell the other way?
What puzzles me, said Files, is that we're able to fall both ways.
That,
announced Tik-Tok.
is because the world is round.
Well, exactly, responded Shaggy. The machinery in your head is in fine working order, Tik-Tok. You know, Betsy, that there is such a thing as the attraction of gravitation, which draws everything toward the center of the earth. That is why we fall out of bed, and why everything clings to the surface of the earth.
Why are you falling out of bed why is that a common thing?
Then why doesn't everything go on down to the center of the earth? Inquired the little girl.
Well, I was afraid you were going to ask me that, replied Shaggy in a sad tone. The reason, my dear, is that the earth is so solid that other solid things can't get through it. But when there's a hole, as there is in this case, we drop right down to the center of the world.
Why don't we stop there? Asked Betsy.
Because we go so fast that we acquire speed enough to carry us right up to the other end.
I don't understand that, and it makes my head ache to try to figure it out, she said after some thought. One thing draws us to the center, but another thing pushes us away from it? But
don't ask me why, please, interrupted the Shaggy Man. If you can't understand it, let it go at that.
Do you understand it? She inquired.
Well, the magic isn't in fairyland, he said gravely. There's lots of magic in nature, and you may see it as well in the United States, where you and I once lived, as you can here.
I never did, she replied.
Because you were so used to it all that you didn't realize it was magic. Is anything more wonderful to see, or wonderful than to see a flower grow and blossom, or to get light out of the electricity in the air? Or the cows that manufacture milk for us must have machinery fully as remarkable as that in Tik-Tok's copper body. And perhaps you've noticed that.
And then, before Shaggy could finish his speech, the strong light of day suddenly broke upon them, grew brighter, and completely enveloped them. The dragon's claws no longer scraped against the metal tube, for he shot into the open air 100 feet or more and sailed so far away from the slanting hole that when he landed, it was on the peak of a mountain, and just over the entrance to the many underground caverns of the Gnome King. Some of the officers tumbled off their seats when Quox struck the ground, but most of the dragon's passengers only felt a slight jar. All were glad to be on solid earth again, and they at once dismounted and began to look about them. Queerly enough, as soon as they had left the dragon, the seats that were strapped to the monster's back disappeared. And this probably happened because there was no further use for them, and because Quox looked far more dignified in just his silver scales. Of course, he still wore the 40 yards of ribbon around his neck, as well as the great locket, but these only made him look dressed up, as Betsy remarked. Now, the army of gnomes had gathered thickly around the mouth of the tube in order to be ready to capture the band of invaders as soon as they popped out. There were indeed hundreds of gnomes assembled, and they were led by Guff, their most famous general. But they did not expect the dragon to fly so high, and he shot out of the tube so suddenly that it took them by surprise. When the gnomes had rubbed the astonishment out of their eyes and regained their wits, they discovered the dragon quietly seated on the mountainside, far above their heads, while the other strangers were standing in a group and calmly looking down upon them. General Guff was very angry at the escape, which was no one's fault but his own.
"Come down here and be captured,"
he shouted, waving his sword at them. "Come up here and capture us, if you dare," replied Queen Anne, who was winding up the clockwork of her private soldier so he could fight more briskly. Guff's first answer was a roar of rage at the defiance. Then he turned and issued a command to his gnomes. These were all armed with sharp spears, and with one accord they raised these spears and threw them straight at their foes, so that they rushed through the air in a perfect cloud of flying weapons. Some damage might have been done, had not the dragon quickly crawled before the others, his body being so big that it shielded every one of them, including Hank. The spears rattled against the silver scales of Quox, and then fell harmlessly to the ground. They were magic spears, of course, and all straightway bounded back into the hands of those who had thrown them, but even Guff could see that it was useless to repeat the attack. It was now Queen Anne's turn to attack, so the generals yelled, "Forward, march!" and the colonels and majors and captains repeated the command, and the valiant army of Oogaboo, which seemed to be composed mainly of Tik-Tok, marched forward in single column toward the gnomes, while Betsy and Polychrome cheered, and Hank gave a loud "Yee-haw!" and Shaggy shouted, "Hooray!" and Queen Anne screamed, "At him, Tik-Tok! At him!" But the gnomes did not await the Clockwork Man's attack, but in a twinkling disappeared into the underground caverns. They made a great mistake in being so hasty, for Tik-Tok had not taken a dozen steps before he stubbed his copper toe on a rock and fell flat to the ground, where he cried,
"Pick me up, pick me up, pick me up,"
until Shaggy and Files ran forward and raised him to his feet again. The dragon chuckled softly to himself as he scratched his left ear with his hind claw, but no one was paying much attention to Quox just then. It was evident to Anne and her officers that there could be no fighting unless the enemy was present, and in order to find the enemy, they must boldly enter the underground kingdom of the gnomes. So bold a step demanded a council of war.
"Don't you think I'd better drop in on Ruggedo and obey the orders of the Jinjin?"
asked Quox. "By no means," returned Queen Anne. "We have already put the army of gnomes to flight, and all that yet remains is to force our way into those caverns and conquer the Gnome King and all his people."
"Well, that seems to me something of a job,"
said the dragon, closing his eyes sleepily. But go ahead if you like, and I'll wait here for you. Well, don't be in any hurry on my account. To one who lives thousands of years, the delay of a few days means nothing at all, and I shall probably sleep until the time comes for me to act." Anne was provoked at this speech. "You may as well go back to Titi Hoochoo now," she said, "for the Gnome King is as good as conquered already." But Quox shook his head. "No," said he, "I'll wait." Do you want to see a picture of Tik-Tok falling down? Here's Tik-Tok falling down. Oh, poor Tik-Tok. Oh dear. There he goes. There he goes, a-tumbling. Oh, man. Okay. Bless him. So, we have read 15 chapters now. That was another 5 chapters we got through. I do feel like this is maybe a natural stopping point as well. Just, like, there's obviously going to be warring / negotiating / hijinks over the next probably few chapters, so I feel like the Council of War makes sense as a place to pause. Oh, thank you, Grim. The dragon isn't an idiot because he's not a fairy. Yeah, we're averaging 5 chapters per read. We've got 10 chapters left. We will next be reading on Sunday, and if we keep up this pace, then we'll be finishing on Tuesday night. But if not, then next Thursday. So. All right. Well, this was awesome. Now, if you are over on Twitch, don't go anywhere. Stream is not over, but the reading portion of our stream is over. So we are going to be wrapping up on YouTube, but we will be continuing for a little bit on Twitch, and I will be going live on my other YouTube channel, which is where I do traditional ASMR triggers. So if you would like to if you're watching on YouTube and you'd like to keep hanging out for a little bit, then come on over either to Twitch or to my other YouTube channel. I'm gonna take like a 5-minute break to stretch and such, but then we will be going live again, probably not for a huge amount, but it'd be nice to do some ASMR. So thank you again to everyone watching on YouTube. If you enjoyed this and you have not yet subscribed, please consider. That would be so helpful. And you know, drop in a like and all that guff. Okay, Anthony, but also we will be going live at the other YouTube channels, so if you prefer to stay on YouTube, then just make sure that you are subbed to the other YouTube channel as well, which is just at Faolkor ASMR in the URL instead of just at Faolkor. Yeah, okay, awesome. I'll be back Sunday night, YouTube. Thank you so much.